So we've seen that the worker is alienated by becoming a commodity and by being bought and sold and reduced to a particular commodity called money. Now here the crucial thing is that money gets its value through a social convention, through an agreement about what exchange value is. And labor is the basis for all of this. But we saw how once money comes into existence, people don't think of it like that. They think of money as the value, as the cause of the value of labor, rather than labor being the cause of the value of money. And that's the crucial thing, is that the worker becomes reduced to their monetary value, but their monetary value becomes the source of their value, rather than the real essence of the value of money being their labor. So now we come to the second way in which capitalism alienates the worker from their work, and that is what we call wage enslavement. Okay? So remember the basic premise here. The worker doesn't own the means of the production in a capitalist society. The capitalist, the bourgeois owner does. And so the worker is always working for the owner, not for themselves. Therefore, they're not working for the product they're making, and they have no say in any of it. Thus, they become enslaved. Enslaved in no different way than the average slave, except whereas the old ancient slave was paid in food and in kind, and was taken care of, the modern slave is paid by money, and the capitalist owner doesn't care about them as long as they give them enough for them to subsist. And thus, the idea is always to give them the least amount of money possible for the most amount of work possible. And so now, once we have this premise that the means of production, the material, the tools, the property, are completely owned by the capitalist, then we see how this process of enslavement occurs. Because then the worker has no say. This is true, the worker has no say at all in the most essential things that go into production. Namely, what is produced and how it is produced. So, if the worker doesn't have any say in what is produced, then he's not working for the product itself, is he? He's not working for excellence of the product. He's not like an artist, like Michelangelo, who, when he's sculpting and he's working, all throughout that process, his mind is set on that David, that statue, and what it will become. And he will not be satisfied until he gets that excellent product that he's aiming for, because that's what he's working for. No, we have to imagine that Michelangelo is just in a sculpture factory, and he's just sculpting for the money they've paid him. And he wanted to sculpt David, but they told him that they wanted little knights with swords that say, "I fight for love," or something like that. And so he has no love for the product at all, does he? He doesn't want to sculpt this, but they told him he has to sculpt this, and unless he sculpts this, he's going to get fired. So, he doesn't do it for the quality or the love, he does it only for the money. He becomes what you might call a wage prostitute, doesn't he? Because that's no different than the prostitute who has sex not out of love for the process, not out of love of the person, but only for the money that they get out of it. And thus, they become alienated from the product because they have no say in it at all. They have no love necessarily for what they're producing. They're just doing it for the money. But not only do they not have say in what is produced, they have no say in how it is designed and even how it is produced. They have no control over the process of production itself. So let us see, what Marx has in mind here is the unique characteristic of a technological society, and that is mass production. Think of an assembly line. So think of a car, and you're a worker in a car factory in Ford's, one of Ford's factories in Detroit. And what's going on here? Well, You are not the designer of the car. There's an engineer for that. And the engineer actually doesn't really have say in the design either, does he? He has to ultimately bring it to the owner and the board of directors, and they're the ones who say yes or no to what he designs. And if they don't like it, he's got to design it differently, doesn't he? But imagine the average worker there. What are they doing? Well, they're on an assembly line. And that assembly line, they're assigned a specific task because of the specialization of labor. And we want a task that's as simple as possible, that a monkey could do it, that indeed a machine could do it. But we want a human machine to do it. So what we see is technology has destroyed the skill that's involved in this very process. Not only do I not have a say in what I do or how I do it, but the way it's done is done in a completely impersonal and unskilled way. So what it means is that after a hard day's work, I can take no pride in what I've done. I've solved no immense problems. I've not developed or expressed a great amount of energy or skill in what I've done. What I've done, anybody could have done it. There's nothing unique to me in doing this. There's nothing I can take pride in. And the skill that I've done. In fact, I've become nothing but this impersonal tool. I've been reduced to a machine. And the machine is being worked by somebody else. Ultimately, I'm a puppet in the hands of the string holder, namely the capitalist himself. And so what I've lost is two things, haven't I? I've become alienated from the product I produce. I don't love it. I don't care about it. Give me my money and I'll go home and watch Netflix. Or I don't care about how it's done and I have no particular skill in doing it. And even the skill that I have is something that I didn't have a choice in developing. And therefore, I'm alienated from the power, the act of production itself, the thing that gives me my sense of fulfillment. My work is neither meaningful, has no goal, nor fulfilling. And thus I become nothing but a tool, the lowest kind of slave that's expendable in an economy where there are too many of them, and therefore I must settle for a wage and a job. Thus I am alienated through enslavement to a wage because I do not control the means of production. The capitalist does.